You click the notification. Your computer needs to restart to install updates. You have clicked this prompt hundreds of times over the years without incident. The screen goes dark, the progress bar crawls across the display, the system restarts, you log back in, and then you notice something wrong. A folder is missing from your desktop. Documents you were working on yesterday are not where you left them. Your browser bookmarks have vanished. Or worse, you're greeted by a completely fresh desktop, as if the computer has been reset to factory settings and everything you stored locally is gone. For most Windows users, this nightmare scenario has never happened. But the fact that it can happen, that it has happened to enough people to generate thousands of panicked forum posts and support tickets, creates a persistent anxiety every time that update notification appears. The question is not whether Windows updates are necessary, they are. The question is whether you have protected yourself from the rare but catastrophic scenario where an update fails, corrupts your user profile, or triggers an automated process that deletes or moves files you assumed were safe. Because the uncomfortable truth is that modern Windows systems, with their cloud integration, automated storage management, and complex update mechanisms, introduce more points of failure than the simpler offline systems of the past. And if you have not taken deliberate steps to protect your data, you are trusting that nothing will go wrong. And trust is not a backup strategy. The fear of update-related data loss is not irrational paranoia. It is rooted in documented incidents where Windows updates have caused exactly the kind of catastrophic failures that users dread. In October 2018, the Windows 10 version 1809 update was released to the public. Within days, users began reporting that the update was deleting files from their documents, pictures, and music folders without warning or recovery options. Microsoft was forced to halt the rollout, pull the update, and spend weeks investigating. The root cause was eventually identified as a bug in the user profile migration code. When the update installed, it was supposed to preserve existing user profiles and data, but under specific conditions involving redirected folders or custom profile locations, the update would instead create a fresh profile and delete the old one, taking all the user's files with it. Microsoft eventually re-released the update with the bug fixed, but the damage to user trust was done. The incident demonstrated that, even after extensive internal testing and staged rollouts, a major update could slip through with a critical data-destroying bug. And while Microsoft offered apologies and recovery assistance, for users without backups, the lost data was unrecoverable. This was not an isolated incident. In 2020, a cumulative update caused issues with user profiles becoming corrupted, forcing users into temporary profiles where none of their settings or files were accessible. In 2021, certain updates caused issues with network drives disconnecting or becoming unmapped. In 2022, updates interfered with third-party backup software, causing missed backups without user notification. Each of these incidents affected a relatively small percentage of the total Windows user base, but when you are managing over 1 billion active devices, even a 1% failure rate translates to millions of affected users. And because these failures are unpredictable, any individual user has no way of knowing whether they will be in the affected minority until the update has already installed. This creates a climate of fear. Users know intellectually that updates are necessary for security, but they also know that updates carry risk. The fear is compounded by the fact that Windows updates are increasingly mandatory and automated. You cannot easily skip an update indefinitely. You cannot review detailed changelogs and decide whether a particular update is worth the risk. The system decides for you, and if something goes wrong, you discover it only after the damage is done. The psychological impact of these rare failures is amplified by their catastrophic nature. A slow computer, a broken driver, a malfunctioning feature. These are annoying but recoverable problems. But complete data loss, the disappearance of years of work, family photos, financial records, is life-altering. The asymmetry between the low probability of occurrence and the extreme severity of consequences keeps users in a state of low-grade anxiety about updates. To understand how data loss can occur during updates and how to protect against it, you must first understand the technical architecture of Windows Update. Windows receives two primary types of updates: cumulative updates, released monthly, bundle security patches, bug fixes, and minor improvements. These updates modify system files, drivers, and components, but are not supposed to touch user data. Feature updates, released once or twice per year, are essentially new versions of Windows. They upgrade the operating system to a new build number, introduce new features, change interface elements, and sometimes reorganize system architecture. Feature updates are much larger and more invasive than cumulative updates. When a feature update installs, Windows attempts to preserve user data through a migration process. The update installer creates a snapshot of critical system files and user profile data. It installs the new version of Windows into a separate directory. Then it migrates user profiles, application settings, and registry configurations from the old installation to the new one. If the migration succeeds, the old Windows installation is moved to a windows.old folder, which is kept for 10 days as a rollback option. If something goes wrong during migration, Windows is supposed to detect the failure and automatically roll back to the previous version. This process works correctly in the vast majority of cases, but it is extraordinarily complex, involving tens of thousands of files, intricate registry structures, and compatibility checks across countless hardware and software configurations. The potential failure points are numerous. File system errors on the hard drive can cause migration failures. Incompatible third-party software can interfere with the update process. Corrupted user profiles can fail to migrate cleanly. Power loss during the update can leave the system in an inconsistent state. Encryption or compression on user folders can confuse the migration logic. Windows includes several protective mechanisms. System Restore creates restore points before major updates, allowing you to revert system settings if problems occur. The Windows Recovery environment provides troubleshooting tools if the system fails to boot. The rollback feature allows you to uninstall a feature update within 10 days. But these protections are not foolproof. Restore points can be deleted automatically to save disk space. The rollback feature only works if the Windows old folder is intact. And if the user profile itself is corrupted, recovery tools may not help. The fundamental challenge is that modern Windows is extraordinarily complex. It must support millions of hardware configurations, billions of software permutations, and maintain backward compatibility with decades of legacy applications. This complexity makes comprehensive testing impossible. Microsoft cannot test every possible combination. They rely on telemetry data, staged rollouts, and the Windows Insider program to catch problems before they reach the general population. But edge cases slip through. The integration of cloud storage into modern Windows introduces an entirely different category of risks that many users do not fully understand. When OneDrive folder backup is enabled, which Windows encourages aggressively during setup, your desktop, documents, and pictures folders are redirected to OneDrive. The folders still appear in File Explorer as if they are local, but they are actually synchronized with Microsoft's cloud storage. Every file you save to these locations is uploaded to OneDrive automatically. This creates several potential confusion points. First, if you reach your OneDrive storage quota, new files may fail to sync without clear notification. You save a document to your desktop, assuming it is safe, but it never uploads. If your local drive then fails, or the file is deleted locally, you have no cloud backup because the sync never completed. Second, OneDrive's Files on Demand feature, which is enabled by default, displays all your cloud files in File Explorer but does not actually download them to your local drive until you open them. Files that are cloud-only appear with a cloud icon. If you lose internet connectivity, those files become inaccessible. Users who do not understand the system sometimes panic, believing their files have been deleted when they are simply stored in the cloud and require internet access. Third, deleting a file from a synced folder deletes it from both the local drive and OneDrive. The file goes to the OneDrive recycle bin where it can be recovered for 30 days, but many users do not know this exists. They delete a file from their desktop, thinking they are removing a local copy, and are shocked to discover it is also gone from their cloud backup. Fourth, Windows Storage Sense, an automated disk cleanup tool, can be configured to delete files from your downloads folder after a certain period and to remove files from the recycle bin automatically. If you save important files to downloads temporarily, intending to organize them later, Storage Sense may delete them before you get around to it. These cloud and automation features are designed to help users by providing automatic backups and freeing up disk space, but they operate on assumptions that do not match all users' mental models of how file storage works. Users expect that saving a file to their computer means it stays there until they explicitly delete it. But in a cloud-synced, automatically managed environment, files can move, be offloaded to the cloud, or be deleted by automated processes without explicit user action. The disconnect between user expectations and system behavior creates situations where users feel they have lost data when the data is actually in a different location or state than they expected. Furthermore, if your Microsoft account is compromised, if you forget your password and cannot complete account recovery, or if Microsoft suspends your account for a policy violation, you could lose access to files stored in OneDrive. The files exist, but you cannot retrieve them without regaining account access. This dependency on cloud identity introduces a single point of failure that did not exist when all your files were stored exclusively on your local hard drive. The solution to update-related data loss is not to avoid updates, which would leave your system vulnerable to security exploits. The solution is defense in depth, implementing multiple layers of protection so that if one fails, others provide redundancy. The most fundamental protection is the 3.2.1 backup rule. You should have at least 3 copies of your important data stored on at least 2 different types of media, with at least 1 copy stored off-site or in the cloud. This rule ensures that no single failure, hardware, software theft, fire, can result in total data loss. For most users, this translates to a practical strategy involving multiple backup types. First, enable Windows File History, which continuously backs up files in your user folders to an external drive. File history creates versioned backups, meaning it keeps multiple versions of files over time, allowing you to recover not just deleted files, but previous versions of modified files. To enable file history, connect an external hard drive, go to Settings, System, Storage, Advanced Storage Settings, Backup Options, and configure file history to back up to the external drive. Set the backup frequency and retention period according to how often your files change. Second, create regular system image backups. A system image is a complete snapshot of your entire drive, including the operating system, installed programs, and all user data. If a Windows update catastrophically fails, corrupting the system beyond repair, you can restore the entire system from the image. Windows includes a backup tool accessible through Control Panel Backup and Restore, Windows 7. Despite the name, it works on Windows 10 and 11. Use it to create a system image on an external drive and update it monthly or before major updates. Third, maintain offline copies of truly irreplaceable data. External hard drives that remain disconnected from the computer except during backups are immune to ransomware, system failures, and automated deletion. Copy your most important files, family photos, financial documents, creative projects, to an external drive and keep it disconnected. Update it periodically. This provides a last line of defense against all digital threats. Fourth, if you use cloud storage like OneDrive, understand its configuration and limitations. Check your storage quota regularly. Ensure that critical files are set to always keep on this device so they remain accessible offline. Familiarize yourself with the OneDrive recycle bin and version history features. Know how to recover deleted files or restore previous versions. Do not treat OneDrive as your only backup. Cloud services can fail, accounts can be locked, and internet outages can occur. Fifth, monitor your drive health. Hard drives and SSDs fail. Windows includes tools to check drive health. Open Command Prompt as administrator and run WMIC disk drive get status to check if Windows has detected any drive problems. For more detailed health information, use third-party tools like Crystal Disk Info, which reads smart data from your drive and warns of impending failure. If your drive shows warning signs, back up immediately and plan to replace it. Sixth, before installing major Windows feature updates, manually create a restore point. Go to Control Panel, System, System Protection, Create. This gives you an additional recovery option if the update causes problems. Also, ensure you have adequate free disk space before updates. Windows needs at least 20 GB of free space to install feature updates. Insufficient space can cause update failures. Finally, test your backups periodically. A backup that has never been tested is a backup you cannot trust. Every few months, practice restoring a file from file history or mounting a system image to verify that the backup is actually functional and that you know how to use the restoration tools. Many users discover their backups are incomplete or corrupted only when they desperately need them. The necessity of these elaborate backup strategies reflects a fundamental transformation in how personal computing operates. In the era of Windows XP and Windows 7, the operating system was largely static. Once installed, it changed only when you explicitly chose to install updates or new software. Your files were stored on your local hard drive, visible and tangible. The computer was a closed system. As long as the hardware functioned, your data persisted. This model was simple and comprehensible. Users understood that their files were on the hard drive. If they wanted a backup, they copied files to another drive or burned them to a DVD. The process was manual, but it was also transparent and under direct user control. Modern Windows operates on fundamentally different principles. The operating system is dynamic, updating itself automatically in the background. Storage is hybrid, partially local and partially cloud, with files moving between states based on automated policies. Features like Storage Sense make decisions about what to delete based on algorithms and usage patterns. The system is not just a passive platform that executes your commands. It is an active agent that manages itself, optimizes storage, and synchronizes with remote services. This automation provides convenience. You do not have to think about disk space or manually initiate backups if you trust OneDrive. But it also introduces opacity. Users no longer have a complete mental model of where their data is, what state it is in, or what automated processes might affect it. This shift toward automated, cloud-integrated systems is driven by legitimate goals. Cloud storage protects against local hardware failure. Automatic updates ensure security. Automated maintenance prevents drives from filling up. But these benefits come at the cost of user agency and system predictability. When the computer makes decisions automatically, users lose the ability to understand exactly what is happening and when. And when things go wrong, when an update fails or a sync error occurs, users often lack the knowledge to diagnose and fix the problem. The trend is toward even greater automation and cloud dependence. Microsoft is investing heavily in AI-driven system management, where algorithms predict what files you need locally and what can be offloaded to the cloud. Future versions of Windows may make even more aggressive assumptions about where data should live and how it should be managed. The user's role is shifting from active administrator to passive consumer of a managed experience. This works well when the automation works correctly, but it creates catastrophic confusion when it fails. The vulnerability of personal data to Windows update failures is not primarily a technical problem. Modern storage devices are reliable, backup software is mature and functional, cloud services have impressive uptime. The vulnerability is human and structural. It exists in the gap between what users believe about how their computers work and how those computers actually work. It exists in the assumption that because something has always worked, it always will. It exists in the trust we place in automated systems designed by corporations whose priorities, security, ecosystem integration, convenience may not perfectly align with our priority, which is simply not losing our irreplaceable files. The elaborate backup strategies we discussed are not paranoia. They are the rational response to a computing environment that has become too complex, too automated, and too dependent on external services for any single point of trust to be reliable. Your local drive can fail, your cloud account can be locked, an update can corrupt your profile, a sync error can delete files. Any individual failure is unlikely, but across millions of users and years of use, unlikely events become certainties. The question is not whether something will eventually go wrong. The question is whether you will have protected yourself before it does. Because the transformation of personal computing from simple, local, user-controlled systems into complex, automated, cloud-integrated platforms is irreversible. We are not going back to the simplicity of offline file storage and manual everything. We are moving forward into systems that do more for us, but also do more to us, making decisions we may not understand, using logic we cannot see. And in that world, the only protection is redundancy, multiple backups, multiple storage locations, multiple recovery options. Not because anyone will fail, but because eventually something will. And when it does, whether it is a failed update, a corrupted drive, a sync error, or simply a misunderstanding about where a file was actually stored, the difference between a minor inconvenience and a catastrophic loss will be determined entirely by whether you prepared for a failure you hoped would never happen. Your data is not safe because you have a computer. Your data is not safe because you have a cloud account. Your data is safe only when you have deliberately, redundantly, and repeatedly ensured that losing any single device, account, or service will not mean losing what you cannot afford to lose. That is the reality of modern computing. And it is a reality that every user must accept and prepare for, or eventually, inevitably, suffer the consequences of ignoring.